All right, welcome in. It is Bears Nation podcast. It is Monday, December 11th, and for the first time in 10 years, Chicago Bears have won coming off their bye, and for the first time in almost 2 years, the Bears have a winning streak of 2.
Act more excited, Jake. We're riled
These are
up.
the facts. This is just factual information that I'm presenting as we embark on this journey known as Bears Nation podcast in this episode on a Victory Monday, which also we're back. I'm back. And so for the first time in a while, I can say this is a Victory Monday, as famously I was not here last week and couldn't say it after the Vikings win. So, we're here and it's happening. And
what's happening?
It's go time.
Wait, it's go time? Are you in? Are you in? Come on. Run the table. Run the damn table.
I don't know how I can't not be in. With the schedule being, with the schedule, I don't know how even me being the most realist, pessimistic Bears fan out there, you have the Cardinals who are awful. You have the Falcons who Desmond Ridder can't even hit Bijan Robinson on a swing route, which he would have walked in for a touchdown from the 7-yard line, something like that, 3-yard line. And then you have the Packers who are very vulnerable. Jordan Love's playing better, but they're by no means a great team. They play tonight against the Giants on Monday night. So we'll see how that goes. The Browns this upcoming week is a little bit of, I think, here's my thing, and we'll get into the Lions game in a second, and we'll talk about this more on Wednesday. But here's my thing with the Bears and evaluation. This upcoming game against the Browns is like the big test for me because you can beat the Cardinals, you can beat the Falcons. They're both terrible. Mm-hmm. Going at Lambeau to close the season is always going to be a test. We'll see what that game means when we get there, if it means anything at all. But this upcoming game against the Browns, a top defense in the NFL, a team that has somehow made it work with Joe Flacco as a quarterback. So that's a big test for me. But at a base level, this is what I've been asking for the entire year. Consistency and, wins, back-to-back wins. And now Justin Fields continues to stack good performances. Yesterday wasn't the most mind-blowing, awesome performance, but it was solid. It was good. Mm-hmm. It was consistent. He didn't turn the ball over, which is great. So to answer your question, I think I'm in. Yes. How can I not be? Because now we've come all the way back from this team stinks. You're going to have the top 2 picks in the draft, and it's just blow everything up, fire everybody, get rid of everybody, to now we might be meeting at least my expectations for this team. I predicted this team in the beginning of the year to go 8-9. I said I would be perfectly happy with that. I said I could see how they could get to 10 wins. And now you look at that first Lions game and that Broncos game, and even if you end 8-9, it's damn, you should have had 10 wins.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm in. And even you don't even have to run the table. You could lose this Browns game and still finish 8-9.
You could get in at 8-9 still. It's a possibility.
Right. You need a lot of help.
Yeah.
But you're right where I expected this team to be when I predicted the season. I didn't think it would go like this.
Right.
I didn't think it would be the what's the word I'm looking for? The variations of the so dramatic down highs and lows. But at the end of the day, you might still be there. So if you end this year, what would it be? 5-1. I'll take that. Let's say you lose this Browns game. If you end the year 5-1, I mean, I don't know how you're not happy with that. And this is the thing, you're seeing all the knocks we have on Eberflus, all the things that we said. I think he's going to stay at this point. I don't know how they could fire him now, especially if you do win 3 out of these next 4. Especially considering the job the defense has done. Offensive coordinator, quarterback coach, that's all a different conversation. But I think at a base level, Eberflus is on track at least to stay as the head coach of the Chicago Bears in 2024. Now, you could go 0-4 in disastrous fashion down the stretch. I just don't see how that happens. Again, it's the Cardinals, it's the Falcons, they're both terrible. It's the Packers, winnable game. Browns, winnable game. So, and at the very worst, you should go 2-2 and end the year 7-10, which is still, in my book, about what I expected for this team. So all of that to say that, yeah, I guess I'm in. I'll be rooting for wins the rest of the way. I usually make fun of Kevin Lapka for the in the hunt graphic, but the state of the NFC, they are legitimately in the hunt. It's not just throwing a bone or trying to drum up some kind of excitement. They're legitimately in the hunt. Kevin, you had the tweet yesterday. They're about a game, I mean, the Vikings won. So what, you're 2 games out of the wild card, but there's a way for you to clinch a wild card spot in week 17, which is crazy to say. You got to win. You have to win the games. You don't have to win out. Ideally, you do. You can lose this Browns game and you're still going to need a lot of help, but the path is there. You're legitimately in the hunt, which is a crazy thing to say. You would have been crazy thing to say 3-4 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's amazing that we're here, and I'm sure we'll talk about Fields and future stuff in a little bit, but like let's relish in the space that we're in right now, and the fact that like it's December, and we've talked about on this show, especially earlier in the season when the Bears started 0-3 and 0-4, and you wanted to see if they could do some sort of comeback. We said, let's at least set the bar at, can we play meaningful games in December? Let's set the bar there. And you're there. Next week is a meaningful game. You're going to wake up on Sunday and you're going to be excited to watch the Bears. I woke up this Sunday and I was excited because I knew they had a chance to win. I predicted them to win. I think you had them to win too. We didn't do a show, but I don't know if you put any bets on it. But my predictions on the Score website, I had them winning 26-23. But I got up and I was excited and I was ready because if we want to evaluate them in the now, let's just talk about the Bears as who they are on December 11th. What did you say?
On December 11th.
On December 11th.
The same thing.
They're an objectively good football team. The Chicago Bears are an objectively good football team as they are on December 11th. Obviously, the record doesn't reflect that. Obviously, we could talk about what that means for the future and Justin Fields and evaluate all these different little things. But from what we saw on Sunday, from what we've seen really the past, really let's place the time marker at since the Bears traded for Montez Sweat, because obviously people have seen the statistical analysis and just the numbers of the Bears defense since they traded for Sweat. So let's place the marker there. Since they traded for Montez Sweat, the Bears have been an objectively good football team. They've outclassed the Lions for 2 straight games. And unfortunately, they just didn't win the first one, but they outclassed them for 56 minutes in that game. And they outclassed them for 60 minutes in this game. And that's a team that I have said, I believe is not in the class of the NFC, but a lot of people do think they are. And they were 9-3 going into this game. So right now, as I'm sitting here, the Bears are an objectively good football team, and they're starting to do the things that we expected of them when we made our yearly our year-long predictions at the beginning of the year. This is a team that, had they played this way in the first 5 weeks, or had they maybe had a little bit more help in the first 5 weeks on the edge, could be and should be a potential 10-7 team, right? Like, you're really going to go back if the Bears end at 8-9 and miss the playoffs by 1 game, or even if they do at 9-8 and miss the playoffs, or 7-10, you're going to go back and you're going to look at the Denver game and you're going to look at the first Lions game and you're going to say those were missed opportunities. But hey, we know that the Bears had the potential to be a playoff team this year. That is likely going to be undisputable. So, it's a realization that's significant. It's a realization that's significant. And we've been talking about it for weeks, but you look across the roster and you're seeing like a relatively complete football team, like on both sides of the ball, at receiver, at running back, at quarterback, at offensive line, secondary, front four, linebackers. It is a complete football team. And I think the difference now is they are starting, and it's maybe a little bit delayed, they're starting to learn how to win. And that's a very, very dangerous thing for the opponents that have to face the Chicago Bears the next 4 weeks, and for some of these teams on the playoff bubble. Because I think if you look at the teams, let's do this real quick because I'm getting ahead of myself and I'm getting excited. If you look at the teams above the Bears in the playoff picture, so let's just paint the picture for people listening right now. The Vikings somehow win 3-0 against the Raiders. I mean, it would have been beautiful if they lost, but they're 7-6 with a fluctuating QB situation. Nick Mullins came in for Josh Dobbs. I can't imagine the Vikings are going to end in the playoffs. Like, I really can't imagine
the way their offense looks right. I don't know how you could make that argument.
Right. So they're 7-6 at the 6th seed, and then the Packers are 6-6. Obviously, recording this on Monday, and they have yet to play the Giants on Monday night in New York. And then after that, you have the Rams, who are 6-7. He had a huge loss, not a huge loss, but a huge loss for us that they lost to the Ravens in overtime. Then the Seahawks 6-7, the Falcons 6-7, the Saints 6-7. And sure, the Bears lost to the Saints, but Tyson Bagent was there, and the Bears are clearly a different team now. And then you have the Bears 5-8 right after the Saints at the 12th seed. So I'll give you those teams: Rams, Seahawks, Falcons, Saints. The Rams are still an objectively good football team, I think.
Yeah.
But is the path is there. None of those teams are insurmountable. And I'm not going to read the schedules for each of those 4 teams. But when I look at the 5 teams there between, the 4 teams between the Bears and the 7th seed in the NFC, I think you can make a serious argument that the Bears right now are playing the best out of all of them. And that is a significant realization, and it gives you hope for what can happen the next 4 weeks.
I would still give the Rams, I think, a slight edge just because of who their coach is and like the pedigree of Matt Stafford when he's at his best or even close to his best.
Defense isn't as good, but
sure. But I still just give them the slight, I mean, overall, but it's slight, it's marginal at best. So I think you're right about that. The Vikings don't scare me. Josh Jacobs got benched yesterday in the fourth quarter after he played terribly against the Bears too. So I think that kind of Cinderella run is at its end. The Falcons, I mean, you just got to wait for Arthur Smith to do something dumb or Desmond Ridder to just screw something up.
And you play them.
Right.
You have head-to-head.
And you play them in a couple weeks. The Saints, like, yeah, you lost that game. You probably should have won that game. You probably win that game with Fields. But like, Jameis and Taysom, like, is Derek Carr making it to the end of the year healthy? I don't know. It's like,
how did he make it to this week healthy?
Right, exactly. I mean, Monday morning injury reports, he's like Derek Carr, fully immobile, like, like can't move. Derek Carr still like hasn't left whatever their stadium, the Superdome yet because he cannot move. It's just like, it's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, you're right. You still need things to break your way, but there's a path and you just got to win your games. And even if you like, I know if you win, let's say you win out or you go 3-1 down the stretch here. And let's say you miss the playoffs by a game, like those two games, the Lions and the Broncos specifically are going to loom very, very large. And I think that when you look at like, how do you evaluate then Eberflus in that scenario? Because you got out to this 2-7 start and you were brutal, but then you have this stretch down the road where you may end up going 6-0 or 5-1 down the stretch. So it's like, you kind of have to take both of those things. Mm-hmm. Does it mean more that the winning streak happened at the end? Does it mean less that the losing streak or whatever, that a terrible start, is it more indicative of a lack? Like, are you afraid that that's going to happen again and the lack of preparation? So those are questions that we'll have to answer. There's still obviously 4 games left to play. So who knows how these can go? You obviously have a path. You are hopeful that you can run the table, that you can win out, that you could go 3-1 down the stretch here, 5-1 overall down the stretch over your last 6. So those are questions that we'll have to ask later. But you're right. I mean, you can compete with all these teams that are currently in the mix for the 7 seed, especially you mentioned the Seahawks. If Geno Smith isn't going to be healthy, they're vulnerable. Their defense is vulnerable. So it's there. The path is there. I can't argue with that. Usually I'm on the show telling Kevin Lapka that he's crazy or that there's no way or that he's being overly optimistic. I see it. I see it. And I know I haven't been the biggest Justin Fields guy on the show, but this is what I asked for: consistency. The stat line doesn't blow you away from yesterday. 19 for 33, 1 touchdown through the air, 58 yards on the ground and touchdown on the ground too. A good game. Missed some throws objectively, but didn't turn the ball over, didn't have the mistake at the end to kill you, which you've gotten used to with Justin Fields. Like, that's objectively a fact. You're used to the turnover at the end. I mean, he did in the Vikings game with the fumble. Played a clean game, didn't give the ball away, played, I mean, and this is what everyone's going to talk about, the offsides, the go route to DJ Moore, the DJ Moore second touchdown. That's growth. I mean, he'd never been able to do that before. Never been able to draw anyone off sides. Never been able to hit that free play for a touchdown where you can decline the penalty. Never happened before with Justin Fields. It's growth. So it's steps in the right direction. Still have, now this is where I drop back and I put a bucket of cold water on everybody. Still 4 games. But if he plays well, if he keeps playing, even if he plays like this, if he puts up this exact stat line over the next 4 games, you're happy with it. You're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1 overall.
I mean, if you extrapolate those stats over a 17-game season, knowing that Justin Fields' primary attribute is as a rusher and accepting that, probably gets close to winning the MVP. If you extrapolate those exact stats on Sunday over a 17-game season, that would be 34 total touchdowns. You probably obviously need more touchdowns and a couple more yards, but he'd be around 3,400 yards and 700 rushing yards. Like, he'd be a Pro Bowler and be in the conversation at least this year with the way the MVP award has shaken out with no clear favorite and whatnot. So you can't go wrong with it. And the thing that I've been saying, I don't know if I've really said on this podcast, but we've heard people like Troy Aikman say, he thought, at least after the Vikings game, when he came on Parks and Spiegel on 670 Score, that the Bears had already made their decision, that the 5 games wouldn't change anything. And I think that's completely not true, because we know Justin Fields has the ability to put up large statistical performances that haven't equated to wins. The key difference, and I truly think what the Bears have been looking for, and we can argue about whether wins are a quarterback stat or not, is that's the only thing you haven't been able to do in the NFL. You have been able to hold on to the ball in the fourth quarter, show that you can make game-winning drives, and show that you can hang on and win football games consistently. So a week ago, he does the game-winning drive thing. It's not a great statistical game, but they did what they've been looking for, or he did what they've been looking for out of him, which is going down the field in the final 2 minutes and getting your team in field goal position to win a game. And I know they didn't score a touchdown and all those different things, sure. And then the week after, against a better opponent, a second straight divisional game at home, he plays well, but he also protects the ball in the fourth quarter. He does the right things. He doesn't, make the 2 mistakes he made the last time he played this opponent with the same exact lead that they had. They had a 12-point lead in the fourth quarter, and I'm sure we were all thinking, it's going to happen again. Fields is going to make a mistake, and they're just going to lose to the Lions again. I was when I saw the 12-point margin, I was like, oh my God, of course, this is going to be the storyline. But hold on to the ball and a second straight win, and they control the game. So you've already seen, right? If we talk about the last 5 games being an evaluation period, you've already seen 2 things in the 2 of these last 5 games that he hasn't really shown in his first 2 years in the NFL. So that is significant. And I think it's still evolving, right? It's still, if he can show consistently now, we talk about winning out, we talk about getting to 8-9 and show consistently that he can win game over game over game, you're going to just be at a point where you just can't move on. You just can't. It would be unjustifiable. I think it's unjustifiable at this point, but there's still the potential for things to go south the next 4 games. There's still the potential for regression to occur or whatnot. I don't think that's going to happen, but you can't deny that it's a possibility. Obviously, everything's a possibility. But at this point, if you had to make the decision today, it's unjustifiable, but there's 4 more games. It's still evolving, but you're seeing the things that you haven't seen from him and the things that we've been asking and imploring him to do in these games against good opponents. So it's significant growth for Justin Fields.
And even on the flip side, let's talk about the defense for a second. The growth there from guys who, Gervon Dexter Sr., another sack yesterday, continues to grow and look like that he could be a staple on the defensive line too. Jalen Johnson, the revenge tour of, not even revenge tour, the pay me tour of, I need a contract and I'm going to make you guys pay a lot of money to keep me around here. That continues to be a storyline. Jaquan Brisker, unbelievable. What's up?
Jalen Johnson. 5 weeks ago after the deadline, we said it was a lock he'd get a franchise tag. Has he in the past couple of weeks made it more likely for him to get an extension now instead of the tag, or is the tag still the most likely option? It's sure more convenient for the Bears, but he's kind of played his way into deserving that.
I think he deserved a contract anyway.
Right.
I hesitate to say that he's more deserving now. His play over the last couple of weeks has definitely been like, holy crap, we need to give this guy an extension because he needs to be a part of our team. Mm-hmm. I think that for sure has happened. I don't think he's any more deserving than he was. I think it's just more in your face of the value he brings to your team now because he's making more plays around the ball now, as opposed to just being like that kind of that silent lockdown guy where he's taking. And to be fair, Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown too did not have good games. They combined for 4 catches or something like that.
Yeah, I think
it was not a lot of production from the 2 of them. Yeah, 4 catches or 5 catches, and 44 yards between the 2 of them, Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. So like usually that's the Jalen Johnson factor. Like you just don't see it, but like he's around the ball, he's making plays on the ball now. So I hesitate to say that he's more deserving, but I think he's demonstrating his value more explicitly to the team and making it more prevalent that, like he needs a contract extension. I still think that the franchise tag is probably the most likely course of action, just knowing how the Bears operate. But if they give him an extension today, I'm not mad about it. I think that'd be great.
That'd be awesome.
What have we talked about? You need premier players. You need at premier positions. You need Pro Bowl type players, and Jalen Johnson arguably is an all NFL, all pro type player at that position.
And I think the Bears are going to play themselves out of a top 10 pick with their own pick. Agreed. I think that's probably likely
if it goes how the best way possible.
Right, but you'll still probably have top 12 picks. Sure, you'll be in the range to get a good player. Any player in the top half of the first round is a good player. Any player in the first round is like potential to be a great player, but top half of the first round is even better. But you're now, when you talk about contract extensions and allocating resources and money, where are the holes that you need to spend on in free agency on this team? When you go down the roster, you can't name many. I mean, you probably would like to get a big ticket wide receiver, but if you're in a position to get Marvin Harrison Jr., then you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about getting a T. Higgins or whoever. Probably still would like a better right guard than Nate Davis, maybe. I mean, he's been fine. Obviously, center is going to be the big thing that they're going to address. But I'm just saying, the whole, like, you don't have to approach the offseason now as, well, we can't pay Jalen Johnson the contract extension because look at all these holes we have to fill. You now know that, hey, we can afford to give him the contract extension because we do have draft capital, and maybe we do trade down. If we do, I mean, 95% chance they're going to get the first overall pick. Let's just assume that's the case. If we do trade down from number 1 to number 3, because I don't want them to trade out of Marvin Harrison Jr. territory. Agreed. If they trade down to 3, you're still getting picks this year. You're still getting significant picks this year. So you can accumulate more draft capital and get to a point where you can afford Jalen Johnson and shore up some of those holes with younger talent through the draft and be okay financially. So it's just, I mean, and can you just imagine? I mean, we thought we were in a great position last year because the Bears had the number 1 overall pick. But they also had we thought they had potential to be good this year. Sure. They had a good young quarterback. They had pieces and all this. And we thought this is an unbelievable scenario that we have the number 1 pick and you don't have to take quarterback. Can you imagine if they were to get into the playoff? Has a team ever made the playoffs and had the number 1 overall pick at the same time? There's no way. There's absolutely no way.
With the way trades happen and stuff, there's probably a way. I don't know. I don't know off the top of my head.
I don't know.
It's probably not likely, but I could, if somebody told me that it had happened before, I wouldn't be totally surprised.
Yeah. I mean,
I'd be a little surprised, but I wouldn't be totally surprised. Also, to your point of like, all right, if you're in that 14, 15 range, like right now at Tankathon, their mock draft has the first corner, Kool-Aid McKinstry, going off the board at 14.
Kool-Aid McKinstry at 14?
Like as of right now, it's quarterback, wide receiver, tackle, tight end, wide receiver, quarterback, tackle, defensive line, edge, which also somebody in the chat made a comment too. Like, I wouldn't mind another edge to pair with Montez
Jared Verse
too, like a Jared Verse like that. I think that would be great. Just because, you know, you don't you need somebody, you don't have Montez Sweat is what, 28, something like that. Like, he's not super old, but you still need somebody younger. Like you would like if you took, and this is going to be like my Illinois bias here, but if you took Johnny Newton too at like 14 or 15, that dude's unbelievable. He's sick. And maybe Gervon Dexter is good.
Jerzon Newton?
Yeah, but he goes by John.
Okay.
So like he might be really, really good at the point of attack too, especially if you keep Matt Eberflus, knowing what the defensive tackle position means to Matt Eberflus scheme. That could be something. So yes, to your point, you will have options. Even if the Patriots want to move up for let's say it shakes out as Bears 1, Patriots 2, Cardinals 3, in Washington 4, Giants 5. Like, are the Giants really going to run it back with Tommy DeVito next year? And you think the Giants might not want to move up to number 1? You think the Patriots might not want to make sure they get their guy at number 1? So I think that's an option. I think that there's for sure a scenario. Again, I wouldn't be mad if you take Marvin Harrison Jr. number 1 overall and just get your guy, get in, get out, and be done with it. Now, if the Cardinals or Patriots offer you a boatload for the number 1 overall pick, you obviously take it. But if you go up there and you just say, Marvin Harrison Jr., come on down. Okay, great. We're done. Cool. And then you wait until 14, 15, whatever. Like, you still have a lot of capital this year. So regardless, I think you have options, and I think that's what we're seeing. And I think that if the Bears end up keeping Fields and Eberflus, I think that even just makes your options even greater.
Yeah. I mean, I'm now you got me looking at Tankathon here and then just seeing the possibilities. But it's like the whole Marvin Harrison Jr. thing for me, and I know we said we wouldn't talk about the future too much, but you're kind of forced to because it's exciting. I mean, the fact that you could have the first overall pick, or that you will have the first overall pick.
I mean, you have the option of having you might have your quarterback.
You have your,
and you might be able to pair him, or you're going to at least have because you're going to have the number 1 overall pick. So you're going to have the opportunity to pair him and DJ Moore, who he already has a very good connection with. Obviously, you see the numbers with Lipstats, unless you've been living under a rock, and you have the opportunity to add a guy, Marvin Harrison Jr., if he doesn't go back. And I like, that is on the table with NIL. Probably not, but it's just, you have the opportunity to add another dynamic playmaker there who a guy and a wide receiver who people have been, if you read certain articles, were saying like, yeah, if this wasn't such a quarterback dependent league, he'd probably be the number 1 overall pick. So you have the opportunity, and then another first rounder on defense, possibly.
Yeah.
So,
and G Station 7 in the chat makes a great point. Like, could we do this again where he says, I would love trading with the Patriots because I don't think they'll be good next year, even with a new quarterback. Could you actually get your, and I know the prospects next year are not as good as this year in Caleb Williams, but you know, you never know, right? Like you just don't know. CJ Stroud got drafted after Bryce Young. Like it's so fluid. It's impossible to tell. But and like people like Joe Burrow, if I had told you in 2018 that Joe Burrow would be the number overall pick, you would have called me a damn idiot. Yeah. So you just never know what can happen. But I'm just saying G Station makes a good point because you could now buy yourself insurance again. And you don't want to plan on that. But if you trade it with the Patriots and they give you their 2025 first round pick and things go south with, or maybe don't go south, but you end like 8-9 again or 7-10, you're like, okay, now we need to make a change. Like he's just not going to take us there. Then you have the insurance again in 2025. I mean, it's a no-brainer.
Well, and
it's a no-brainer.
You look at how could the Patriots not give up their 2025 first round pick because they don't have a DJ Moore to give you.
Yeah.
You know, their roster, like, do you really want what Juju Smith-Schuster, Tyquan Thornton? Like, who would you even want?
Matthew Judon, but he got hurt this year.
Right. You know? It's just like, there's nobody of that DJ Moore caliber that the Patriots could give you. And even still, like, because the Panthers moved up such a bigger jump that, 2-1 is a less jump. But if the main part is draft picks, then they have to give you their first rounder in 2025. How could they not? And the Bears know what they have. They have the leverage. So yeah, you'll definitely have options. I think it is exciting. And the fact of the matter is, to go back to the actual game, you're seeing the progression. Like, again, just to hammer that point home, like, I think it was Jaquan Brisker after the game was saying like, yeah, we made adjustments at halftime. Like and how many times have we been able to say that at Bears fans, where you saw clear adjustments made at halftime to keep you in the game or win you the game? And so it's just different, and it is progress, and it's a stark contrast from what we saw a month or two ago. And so wait and see. You have winnable games. You have super winnable games the rest of the way. You can beat the Browns for sure. I'm shocked by how well they've played with, the ghost of Joe Flacco, but part of that is that defense, and it's still scary, and they still have Myles Garrett, and they're still really good. So that's the test. That's the next test for Justin Fields, and we'll talk about it more on Wednesday. But all right, great. You beat up on a suspect Lions team who people have been calling frauds all year. You beat up on a Vikings team that's fighting for their playoff lives. Yes, I'm happy with Justin Fields' progression, that he strung a bunch of good games together, with the injury obviously sandwiched in between that. But now you have a real test against Cleveland in horrible conditions, who have a really good defense. It could be a rock fight. It could be a 14-7 game, but still, you just show us that you can win a game like that.
Yeah. That's what it'll come down to. And if you want to, we'll do a full preview of this game, obviously, on Wednesday, but just a really interesting piece of news that came out. The Browns just actually put Joe Flacco back to the practice squad, which makes him eligible to sign with any other team's active roster. I doubt any team will actually sign him, but why are you putting him back to the practice squad after he just put up decent numbers and help you win versus the Colts, and your other quarterbacks are injured, and you cut PJ Walker?
Announce that he was the
did he not say after the press conference he's the starter the rest of the year? I'm pretty sure I saw Ian Rappaport tweet that. So
I'm almost positive.
Weird thing to monitor. It might just be like a roster management thing. I have no idea what's going on there.
Trying to get him an actual contract.
Yeah, but sure, the test is there for Justin Fields. But if you want to just talk about the game as a whole, I mean, come on. Are you afraid of Joe Flacco? No. Especially the way the Bears defense has played. Come on. You're afraid of that Cleveland defense, but they're not, like, they're very good. They're very good, and you're gonna have to find a way to game plan against Myles Garrett, something you didn't do 3 years ago when Justin Fields got killed against this exact same team in their house, and it felt like it set Justin Fields back years. So this would be like a redemption game for him to a certain extent. But if you go back to this game on Sunday, let's talk about this, because I think we actually need to have a discussion, and this is credit to you because you've been on this for a couple of years now. How many tight ends in the NFL are better than Cole Kmet? I actually don't know how many tight ends in the NFL are better than Cole Kmet. You can say active because Mark Andrews is injured.
Sure.
So I'm going to look up the tight end yardage numbers right now. I don't know.
So Travis Kelce.
Okay, so let's go down the list. So right now, Cole Kmet's 9th in the NFL in receiving yards by tight ends. So let's name the players above him. Evan Ingram, better than Cole Kmet? It's really close. Evan Ingram's been really good this year.
Yeah.
He's got 84 receptions.
I'm going to say
Yeah.
marginally.
Marginally. Yeah, we can say that. And Jake Ferguson,
I think after last night,
I think he's better. I think he's better.
I think he's going to be a monster.
I don't. Taysom Hill is on here. This must be a fantasy website. Obviously, Cole Kmet's better than him. I think Cole Kmet's obviously better than Sam Laporta at this time. I think
at this time, but I think Laporta has the higher ceiling.
Sure, he's not better than Hawkinson. He's not better than Kittle. He's not better than Kelsey. Did I say Andrews?
Yeah, but he's injured.
Yeah, but he's injured. So he's better than Njoku. He's better than Schultz. He's better than McBride. He's better than Kyle Pitts. He's better than Hunter Henry, Cade Otton, Dalton Kincaid, Logan Thomas. I think he's better than Dallas Goedert right now. So if you put it this way, he is a top 8 tight end in the NFL.
Sure.
Great.
Awesome.
Significant. Worth the money you give him. Second round pick.
Yeah.
Congrats.
100%.
I mean, and it's just like the way he's become a safety blanket for Justin Fields
100%.
and just, hey, I don't care if you're covered. We know Justin Fields hasn't really been the best at throwing guys open or taking shots necessarily with guys who are covered, right? And that's why people think he holds the ball is he just waits for guys to get open. And if they're not open enough, he's just going to hold on to it and try to flush the pocket. But with Cole Kmet, he has this trust level with him now where I don't care if dude's draped all over you. I'm going to put you in a spot where you can catch it. And Cole Kmet has the ability to come down with it. I mean, he did that yesterday a couple of times where dude's all over him. He's just going to out-muscle him, out-tough him, and get a first down. I mean, he has been a chain mover, Cole Kmet has, and he's been a significant piece to this offense. And I think when we talk about the abilities of this offense and as a whole and how good they can be, we don't really bring Cole Kmet into the equation that often. We talk about Justin Fields and we talk about DJ Moore, but to have a top 8 tight end in the NFL, that's a significant thing to recognize.
And I think his game-to-game ceiling could still be higher too. Like, I mean, we've seen Cole Kmet have explosive days with multiple touchdowns and be awesome. Like, I think like yesterday's stat line, what was it? 5 catches for 60-some yards, 5 catches for 66 yards. That's the baseline to me for Cole Kmet. Like, that's the floor. I think there's another gear he could hit 100%. I think there's definitely space there for him to move up a couple rungs on that tight end ladder. So 100%. And you just keep adding those playmakers and let Justin Fields do his thing. I mean, the run on whatever, second down, first down near their own end zone when he just scrambled. It was the classic Justin Fields. Had nothing down the field, so he just scrambled away and moved the chains. Like, he can still do it. But when he's not being counted on to do that every single play, it makes it, when it happens, even more special to me, because then it just shows that you are giving him some other options at least. And that's progression. That's what we talked about. That's a team getting better. I wouldn't say, you said it early in the episode, you said the Bears are a good football team. I wouldn't say that they're good. They're closer to average than they are to bad, though.
So you don't think they're even average?
I think they're like about average.
Say they're closer to good than they are to bad.
Average.
They're closer to good than they are to bad.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
I think they're good, but for you, we can give you that. That's so. I mean, for you to say that,
yeah. I mean,
that's my Super Bowl.
Well. They've played well. Like, they played well yesterday.
Yeah.
The defense was great yesterday, and I mean, part of that is weather and Jared Goff outside and bad weather. Like, that's, we all know about that. But even before that, like, the defense has gotten better week over week, and Montez Sweat has a bunch to that. Look what happens when you put pressure on the quarterback. Wow, what a concept! But I think overall that this team is definitely getting better. And so we'll see what happens. Again, you could completely collapse over the last 4 weeks and you could completely screw it up.
Sure, it's possible.
But if this continues to trend in the direction that's been going the last couple of weeks, you're going to end like 9-8 or 8-9. And I think overall that's a successful season.
And to go back to what we're talking about with like the next 5 games and the evaluation period of Justin Fields and everything, isn't it amazing? And we've talked about this for years and ever since we started this podcast, and people never seem to understand it. Winning fixes everything. Sure. If you take Justin Fields' exact stats from the past 2 games and change one thing and change that 2-0 to 0-2, you're not even talking about him being here next year.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's is it May or is it Williams? Is it Daniels? Right?
Yeah,
you're not even talking about it. Winning fixes everything. It makes you be less critical and it causes you to scrutinize less. Like, if the Bears lost this game, Jake, your whole Twitter feed would be, Fields missed Mooney up the seam here.
Yep.
Fields missed Moore on the sideline. He shouldn't have flushed here. Why did he take this sack, right? People cause themselves to be more critical when they lose. But when they win and everything's jolly, you don't even pay attention to those things. It's like there was, I think it was a play in the end zone, like the jump ball to DJ Moore, like Darnell Mooney was open in the flat, and I was like, I should have thrown it to Darnell Mooney.
Right.
And maybe in the moment, sure. But since the game has ended, oh, you haven't seen that at all, because they won the game. It's moot. It doesn't matter. And like, if you look at Patrick Mahomes' tape, you can find those things throughout his entire career in every single game. But guess what? He wins, so people don't care. Like, winning fixes everything. And the fact that the Bears are winning now is just, it's great timing for Justin Fields. It's great timing for his resume, because in this evaluation period, it just causes people to look more brightly at his performances and not, be more or not be more critical and have more scrutiny towards the way he's played. So winning fixes everything. And I think it fixes everything in a locker room.
Sure.
The way the Bears have recovered from everything that's happened to this team. I mean, the number of episodes we had on this podcast about, tear down Hallis Hall and
get
your pitchforks and everything. And we've been so critical of Matt Eberflus, and I'm not going to necessarily roll that back, because he was deserving of some of the criticism that we spoke on earlier in the year, 100%. But he does deserve credit for the way that he's rallied the troops through the hell of a season that this has been. I mean, coaches getting fired and fractures in the locker room. I mean, these are really, really, really hard things to recover from. But the fact that they, we have to give credit to Tyson Bagent to a certain extent as well, because the fact that they won those games with him in there saved their season.
100%.
I mean, Tyson Bagent coming in and winning games for them saved their season.
I had that thought last night. Like, if anything, this proves even more that Tyson Bagent has a place in the NFL.
Yeah.
Like, if anything, like what has happened proves that even more. Like 100% more.
Right. And do I think the Bears could have been 3-1 over that stretch with Justin Fields? I think they could have been. Obviously, they would have been better with Justin Fields over that stretch.
You could have beat the Chargers.
Yeah, you could have beat the Chargers, and you could have beat the Saints. But, the Saints, sorry. Mm-hmm. But in a lot of situations, when teams have a backup quarterback, especially an undrafted rookie, D2 for 4 straight games, they go 0-4 or 1-3. So the fact that they were able to, and they played some easy opponents, they got wins against really bad teams, the Raiders and the Panthers. But, it's hard to win in the NFL. You pulled it off, and those 2 wins are the reason that you're even in a position now to be 5-8 and talk about, the future of this team right now. So again, credit to them, and credit to just the coaching staff and the entire team to rally the troops and bring them together. So, and people are already in the chat. Like, I'm not, again, my stance on Tyson Bagent. I'm not talking about him being a starting quarterback in the NFL. I'm saying he deserves 100% credit for,
it's hard to win games in the NFL,
for manning the ship for a couple games and getting them to this point.
Agree.
And I think that's an unfortunate thing too, is I think you'll look back at the season, if they barely missed the playoffs, and think, man, if Fields was healthy, they might get in.
I mean, the Broncos game and the first Lions game still count, though, too. And
they do still count. They do still count. But I think they win that Minnesota game if he doesn't go out, potentially. They're playing bad that game anyway, though. It's really hard to say that. And let's do this, too. We got a couple more things here, then we'll head out of here. First of all, if you want to give the Coach of the Year award to anybody, give it to Phil fucking Snow. I mean, Phil Snow comes in as a defensive assistant for the Chicago Bears after Alan Williams was fired and the Bears were a mess because Eberflus was calling plays, and they've been unreal. Who is Phil Snow? Who is this guy? This guy's incredible.
It's the first time I've heard that name in my life.
Because it kind of flew under the radar.
I had no idea who that guy was.
Sign Phil Snow to a 10-year, $500 million. Give him a bigger contract than Ohtani. I mean, what Phil Snow has done with the Bears is deserving of any accolade that you could even imagine. So that's thing number one. I got 3 things for you. Thing number 2, we'll do this real quick. How close are the Bears? Like, if you talk about the future, are they closer than we think? They've just beat a top team in the NFC. They're obviously not in the class of the Eagles, and they're not ready to play with the big boys yet.
The Lions are frauds.
Right. They're not ready to play with the big boys yet. But will you convince yourself, if the Bears end 8-9 or 9-8, whatever it may be, as long as things don't go disastrous the next 4 games and they do the right things in the offseason, can you convince yourself that they can be a top 3 team in the NFC next year, a top 4 team?
I think next year the Bears could be last year's Jaguars.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, potential playoff team disappointing exit makes for a bigger buildup for the following year. Or even if you want to say like last year's Seahawks. Like I think they're like, I don't think they're going to be like class of the league or the division or whatever, but I think they're going to be like that
Seahawks
team that can win the division, can have a lot of potential, gets hot down the stretch, disappointing exit in the playoffs, favored for the division following year.
How about this? Last year's Eagles. And I'm not saying to make the Super Bowl, but when you look at the 2021 Eagles, with a lot of the same conversations about the Bears, or a lot of the same conversations as the Bears.
That's a big jump.
It's a big jump, but you had Jalen Hurts, who was, is he the guy? We don't really know. Should they draft a quarterback? They went 9-8 in 2021. And in 2022, obviously 14-3 made it to the Super Bowl. And they hired a new coach. Or no, sorry. 9-8 was the first year with Nick Sirianni. Right. And the second year with Sirianni was 14-3. And now they've obviously started regressed, I guess, this year. And they're not playing well. But just that sort of jump. It's crazy to say that, but it's a good case study as, all right, in that same win range in 2021.
I would have to see what happens with this draft and what you do with free agency.
Yeah.
Like that's a hard question to answer right now.
Yeah,
but
it is.
I think that they're closer than they were a month ago.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, to think that literally a month ago, I think Daniel Jeremiah must hate the Bears because a month ago he was saying, "Oh, the Bears are 10 players away from being 10 players away." Shut the hell up! What are you talking about? I thought that was foolish when he said it. What do you mean the Bears are 10 players away? They have good players on the roster. Their roster could objectively be better than the Lions roster. Like I am 100% serious about that. At this moment, with the injuries that the Lions have sustained as well, the Bears probably have a better roster. I would feel totally comfortable saying that. Totally comfortable. With the Lions have a better running back. That's all they have. And I think DJ Moore is better than Amon-Ra St. Brown at this moment.
Sure.
But they have Jahmyr Gibbs and Dave Montgomery. Sure, congrats. Yeah, but what else? And a better O-line. We'll give him that. But anyway, last thing here. So Dan Jeremiah said this as well. He was talking about Justin Fields on NFL Network. And he said, you have to use the confetti test, which I thought was an interesting thing. He said, you have to ask yourself if you can see your starting quarterback hoist the Lombardi with confetti falling around him. And that's what you have to go. That's the process you have to go through in your head to discover and to realize if this is actually the guy for your franchise. And for me, it's easy because I watched him in college.
Yeah.
I've seen it. There's a picture like ingrained in my brain of him with a backwards cap on after beating Clemson with literally confetti falling next to him after throwing 6 touchdowns with a broken rib. Like that, like I've seen it, but obviously that's college. There's been plenty of players who have had confetti fall around them with college and haven't in the NFL, but I can see it. I can see with Justin Fields in the NFL, the way he carries himself, the way he responds to adversity, and just to bounce back from everything that he's faced this year, I think is something that only 10 to 15% of quarterbacks in the NFL could do. I mean, in this city and obviously all the noise, and to be able to just keep his head straight, put the blinders on and play well through all of it, through injury and everything. Like I can see it. And obviously my stance on Justin Fields is known and obviously I would see it, but if I try to be as objective as possible and think about everything and really evaluate it, I can see it. Can you?
I think part of I say yes, but I think also part of that is like I've seen it. Like it's like I have a predisposition. Like I've seen that image, albeit in a different setting, in front of my eyeballs before. So like it's already in there. But yeah, I mean the talent is there. That's not, and I think like that question isn't meant for us. As fans, like obviously you're gonna say, oh yeah, of course I can picture this. But that being said, like, yeah, I mean, how can you not? If you watch Justin Fields in college, how can you say that that's not something that you can see? Which I think is fair. But there's still a lot of work to do. There's still a lot that has to be done on this roster. You still need 2 offensive linemen, probably. You still need, then this is lower down the totem pole. I think you need an upgrade at running back as well. Deonta Foreman's on a 1-year contract. I don't think Khalil Herbert is it. For some reason, they're not giving Roschon Johnson chances. So Justin Fields can't keep leading this team in rushing, which part of that is the offensive line. And you need to add a couple guys there. You need to add another edge. You got to figure out what you're going to do with Jalen Johnson. But I mean, it's possible that we're sitting here, 5 months from now, 4 months from now, and you're saying like, wow, look at all these upgrades that have been made. And you're looking at, okay, what's the path of division? It's not out of the question. It's totally reasonable.
Last thing, truly last thing.
Okay.
Week 17.
Okay.
Bears Packers.
Yep. At Lambeau.
The time for that game is currently TBD.
The NFL wants to flex it
they will
bad,
flex
don't
that
they?
fucking game into Sunday Night Football if they can. They will flex. Even if the Bears can't get in the playoffs but can play spoiler, this is what they did last year.
Yep.
That game's going to be on Sunday Night Football. Book it. Mark it.
Which
is probably terrible for us. Like, I don't know if I want, like, I don't know if I need another Sunday Night Football game against the Packers.
And well, imagine if it is a win in it. Then you're waiting all day Sunday for that last week of the season.
I'm going to throw up.
Yeah, I do not want to be around you at all during that. Please stay far away from me during
When's
that.
the last time the Bears had a win in against the Packers? Is that Chris Connie? Is that the last time?
Was it?
Is that Chris? I cried that day. Chris Connie? I think that was. I think
also, let's have this be like, how about Mark Trestman being weird on Twitter?
I went 7-1 and what? I had to double check that was him. Was it actually him? I think it is.
I think so. I have no reason to believe, but not once, but twice. Somebody being like, "Hey, man, no, you weren't," and it'd be like, "Oh, my bad. It was actually this," and somebody again be like, "No, man, that's not what." It was wild.
He deleted it.
Yeah, I mean, how could he not?
He just
wild. What a weird.
How do I remember the Mark Trestman era better than you, Mark Trestman? Literally, you.
Dark time of Bears history. All right, this has been Bears Nation podcast on a Victory Monday. For once, it's good to say happy to be here. Happy to recap a win. And, talk about a path to the playoffs. We'll see what happens. We'll be back on Wednesday. We'll discuss the Browns' upcoming game against the Bears. We'll talk about injuries, talk about what the situation with Joe Flacco is. I assume he's still going to be the starter because Kevin Stefanski said it. But we'll break it down. We'll be here, and we'll talk about it with all you guys, and we'll look ahead to the future and give a season-long outlook as well, because we always do that, and how can you not at this point in the season? So join us for that Wednesday. We will be back, myself, Kevin, to talk about the Bears' upcoming tilt against the Browns. But for myself, for Kevin, this has been Bears Nation podcast. And until then, bear down.